everyone, and welcome to Valley View Living. My name is Megan. I live on a small farm in New South Wales, Australia, and raise my 6 young children here, homeschooling and homesteading, and I share a lot of homemaking. Today I am starting off here in my pajamas and making my breakfast after the kids all had an egg on toast, and I am frying up a burger patty and a fried egg on the side, because one thing we have a lot of at the moment is beef. We've just had our very first experience butchering a steer here on the farm, which you can find a link to in our description box below if you're interested. That steer netted 168 kilograms of beef, so I am planning quite a few beef meals in our future. And today we're going to go ahead and make some homemade beef burgers. So I am starting with getting this burger bun dough going in the morning, right after breakfast. I like to get that rising, and it can just sit here on the bench all day, rising slowly, while I get on with the many jobs to do around the house and the farm. This is our regular burger bun recipe, which I will copy into the description box below for you. But basically it is 2 teaspoons of yeast in 1 cup of warm water with 3 tablespoons of honey. And you set that aside for a few minutes until the yeast is frothy, and then you pour in 3 tablespoons of melted butter, 1 whole egg, a teaspoon of salt, and around 3 cups of wheat flour. And I say around 3 cups because with doughs you really just want to see how it feels after that. If it feels so sticky you cannot roll out the dough into a burger bun, then you need a little more flour, just tablespoon by tablespoon, until it just comes together enough. And you do not want to add too much flour and make this very dry, because then the buns come out really dense and just not as enjoyable. But if the dough is quite sticky, then the buns come out really soft and fluffy and just incredibly Moorish. The winter days, of course, are just feeling incredibly short right now. So we have a breakfast, and we try to have a hot breakfast every morning. And generally I'll take care of cleaning the kitchen in the morning as well, just because I'm in there and I am cooking. I find it so easy to go right ahead and just empty the dishwasher, which is always run last thing at night, so needs to be emptied first thing in the morning, of course. And then it's very easy to chase up my oldest child, whose responsibility is to clean the kitchen after breakfast in the morning, and she can stack right into that empty dishwasher. That way we all get our chores finished and we get ourselves dressed and ready for the day by about 10 a.m. every morning, and that also includes, of course, handling farm chores. So that means at this time of year we let the chickens out to free range. We let them out to free range all day from first thing in the morning, because at this point they will not be laying eggs again until soon after the winter solstice, when the days start to become longer again. So because they're not laying eggs, I don't need to keep them confined into their area until after they have laid, which is the usual routine in the summer months. But in winter we like to give them as much foraging time as possible, just to supplement their diet and make sure they stay in great health. Of course, they do have a yard attached to their coop, so even when they are confined, they can still have access to the ground for a scratch and a peck, but of course they've gone well over that soil by this point, and they love to get out over our 5 acres and just range as they wish. I was at a bit of a loss as to what to make for lunch on this day after a very busy school morning. A couple of my kids are doing sort of hands-on projects that really required me to be present and doing their schoolwork with them on this morning rather than just hanging around and being a support person. So I didn't have much more time in the kitchen after getting that dough on to rise. After a little rummage around in the fridge at about 11:30, I spotted that we still had a kilogram of potatoes left. Now this is the day before our veggie box delivery, so the fridge is starting to look a little bare. But I pulled out these potatoes, gave them a scrub, and then popped them into roast in the hot oven for about 45 minutes. After covering them with a bit of olive oil and sea salt, and then once they were done, I thought I would introduce my kids to one of my personal favorites, something that I don't think I have put the energy into making for years, because I usually have a baby in my hands, and that is baked stuffed potatoes. I just love them. Scooping out the inside of the potato once it's soft and cooked through, and then just using a fork to softly mash through plenty of butter, of course, some salt, and this time I put in some sour cream as well. Now I love these with ham, but I didn't have any ham hanging around the house today, so we just went with cheese. And after I've stuffed that delicious mix back into the potatoes, I cover them with a bit more grated cheese and put them back under the grill for about 10 or 15 minutes until they're brown and bubbly. My son offered to head out to the veggie patch and pick some lettuce leaves for us, lettuce being one of the crops that grows beautifully in the winter here. It's crisp and green and grows so well, and there are fewer pests to nibble away at it. So the lettuce is growing well. He went out and picked enough for a small salad to go with lunch for us. I kept it super simple. Just the green salad leaves and some sliced red onion, and then I just pulled out all the pickles I have in the fridge, so pickled cucumbers and some beetroot. These are just so handy to have hanging around the fridge, especially in winter when we have a dearth of the fresh goodies in the garden like tomatoes, so they just flesh out the plate a bit and make sure you're still getting some veggies as a side. I'm finding with homeschooling, it's really rewarding as your children get older. I have a teen now who's 14, and it's just been wonderful to see her find her own passions and have so much time to blossom into them. And the other thing is that your older learners become so much more independent, so they can handle their subjects themselves, and you step more into a support role and less into a teacher role in many ways. And of course they start looking broader afield than their parents for teachers. So I find that my older kids really like conversations with other adults that they meet at homeschool groups, or with extended family members, or with professionals that we meet in our daily lives. And they're learning so much from that. Of course, these days it's so easy to connect with others over YouTube or online as well. So there's so many fields of research to tap into and so many fields of expertise of others that you can access as a kid these days. It's really wonderful. But also that means that I've got more time to help my younger learners. So I have one now who is learning to read, and those are definitely the most labour-intensive years for the homeschooling parent, or for any teacher, I suppose, when you're guiding a child through how to read for the first time and laying down those foundations with early maths. So it takes a lot of planning and energy and just discipline to make sure that I'm getting that done in the weekday mornings. But of course it's fun too. It's wonderful to do these projects with your kids. This morning my son asked to make a kite, and it has been windy here recently. So we found some bamboo in the yard and used an old bin bag and put that together. And I'll put a clip in at the end of this video of him trying to get it to fly. Unfortunately, we didn't quite have the desired result, but we'll wait for a windier day, and I'm sure he'll get where he wanted to with that. So I'm very happy to say that my children do have good taste buds, and every one of them enjoyed baked stuffed potatoes. So that is one that I might make again a bit more regularly than the never I've made it before, but they are a bit of fussing and they are a bit of extra work, more steps than I really need on a school day lunchtime. So of course we're also just happy with a baked potato bar, having the baked potatoes done and lovely simple toppings like butter or sour cream. Yeah, that's often enough, you know, really satisfying. So we had our lunch, and I'd like to just chill with the kids for a bit there. I might do a read aloud, or we might just sit at the table and chat, whatever, but just not sort of be consciously working, actually be consciously resting while I eat meals. And that is something that I actually have to stay with to make sure it happens. It's so easy as a mum to just be thinking about the next thing on your to-do list instead of concentrating on what you're actually doing in the moment. But after we had that lunch, I got these bread rolls rolled out, and my daughter asked to help as well, so she got a couple shaped for me and popped on the tray. Now we're going to let them rise while we have some outside time. Then I can come back and pop them in the oven for dinner. But I found myself around this time after lunch, I just started getting a bit grumpy and just had to check in with myself as to why that was, and realizing that in winter, the time outside just doesn't come naturally. So I absolutely operate best and am happiest and healthiest with a good long walk every single day. And in the summer months with the longer days, so on the warmer months of the year, it's quite easy and simple for me to fit that into our routine in the morning, because I just have so many more daylight hours to get this done. And I do like to do between 3 and 4 kilometers if possible on those days. I just have a long driveway, so I just walk the driveway. But in winter, no matter how much I try to bend time, it just doesn't seem like I can get in outdoor exercise as often. And I really do miss it. It's so wonderful for mental health, as well as physical, of course. But anyway, if I can't get a walk in, well, I'll go out and I'll feed the cows, and I'll do some farm chores, and I'll just wander around outside for a bit. And that is just so good at calming me down. Being indoors with 4 of my children are under the age of 8. So they are 1, 3, 6 and 8. Sorry, they're 1, 4 now, 6 and 8. My 4-year-old just had her birthday recently. And they're noisy, they're loud. You know, happy, healthy kids are noisy and loud. They are messy, they are active, but that can feel draining, of course, when you're in the same space as them on cold winter days and you're all inside together. So it is just a breath of fresh air, literally, to go outside, even if it's cool outside, and just enjoy a little bit of peace and quiet. So we've increased our lactating cow's rations there. So she is getting some soaked grain, that's soaked whole oats, just soaked in water, once or maybe even twice a day. We're doing a whole bucket of those, as well as a few biscuits of hay for the whole mob. And she's much happier with that. I mean, there is just very little grass growth at the moment. So cows just need an immense amount of food, and that has made her happier and healthier, and she just seems so much more relaxed just having that bit of grain in her daily diet. Okay, inside after a nice bracing walk and just feeling invigorated and ready, and believe it or not, hungry again, so it must be dinner time. And of course we're having dinner earlier on these short winter days, so we'll often have dinner cooked and wrapped up and even the kitchen cleaned by 5:36 at night. So that's fine. I just go with the seasons. If it's starting to get cool, everybody's ready for dinner. Sorry, starting to get dark and everybody's ready for dinner, I will go ahead and do that. So this beef burger patty is so incredibly simple. I have tried so many actual recipes over the years for beef burgers, you know, similar to meatballs, adding this and that, adding flour or milk or eggs or just any number of seasonings, but we always come back to this one. And it's partially, of course, because it's so simple and easy, but partially because it's delicious. It does rely on the quality of your beef mince, but in our case right now, we just have really good quality beef and I want to taste it. So it is literally just beef mince, and I flatten that in my hands, between my hands, as thin as I can get it without it breaking apart, because we just prefer how that cooks up and how that eats on a burger. And it's just salt, unrefined sea salt, and fresh ground black pepper. And that is delicious to us. It's so simple. And I also find that we've experimented with a lot of different burger toppings as well over the years, but now I've learnt that in our house we also prefer that simple. It's kind of like pizza. We're people who love just a plain cheese pizza with really quality toppings and a great base. It's similar with burgers. We love just a plain cheeseburger with a really great burger bun. Really good beef mince, and here we've got cheese melted over these. These are for my kids. I think all of my kids prefer them as a cheeseburger, and then my husband and myself prefer them just as a burger. So I have to give the cast iron a wash, of course, between frying up those patties, and I have absolutely nailed how to do that. With my cast iron pan, all I do is, while it's still hot, I have it blisteringly hot. It can be smoking off all of the stuff from the meal that I've just cooked, and I will take that hot off the pan right over to the sink and pour cold water onto it. And all of that steam will absolutely scour the pan perfectly clean of anything. There are some exceptions to that. If I've made something with maybe honey soy, like a honey soy chicken in my pan, it can be a real pain to clean. But for 95% of things, that's all I need to do, and it's so easy. So those burger buns came out of the oven. Another thing I love about that recipe is, you put the dough on in the morning, let it rise all day, and then the actual act of rolling out the buns, let it rise again for another hour or 2 hours. But by the time you've got it in the oven, they're done in 20 minutes, and the house smells beautiful of freshly baked bread. Now, these were so good that everybody had told me they wished I had made double, so everybody could have a second burger. Did we really need that? Look, probably not. I don't know. But maybe next time I will go ahead and make a double batch, because I know as my family grows in age and in size, they need bigger meals and they need more food, and teenagers can really eat, right? They're growing so quickly. And actually, I've got to say that my 6-year-old son eats as much as his teenage sisters, for sure, if not more. It can be quite shocking, actually, how much boys can eat. And I don't know, maybe I'm kind of grateful that I've got 5 daughters and 1 son instead of 5 sons and 1 daughter, because he's wonderful. But wow, imagine the grocery bill with 5 growing sons or growing teenage sons. Amazing. Of course, girls can be just as hungry and eat just as much. It's just in this case, in our house, he really can put it away. He can really eat. So anyway, this was super tasty, and I did show you a little clip earlier of making just a quick avocado oil mayonnaise. That's something that is a must for us on our burgers. We love a good burger sauce. So in terms of burger sauce, I'll just make that avocado mayo and mix it with some tomato sauce, and that's your burger sauce. And this is my burger that I'm putting together here. Look, I can't resist butter on freshly cooked bread roll. So I butter a little bit of my burger bun there. That's our homegrown lettuce. We'll pop that on top. And then I just have a plain beef patty, some of the burger sauce, that avocado oil mayo mixed with some tomato sauce and some beautiful diced pickles. And I like raw onion. And this really takes me back, okay? So this is probably the closest to like a Big Mac that I'm ever going to have again. So it's just that sauce is so similar. And you know how on the Big Mac they have raw onion and then the sliced pickle on top? That's what I'm going for here. And even the patty. So thanks for keeping me company as I go about my homemaking and homesteading task today. If you've enjoyed my content today, please feel free to like or comment or subscribe, and then I'll see you next time. Bye!